Thank you, guest speaker. Hello. I do not need to ask. I can see they are happy and they have met their expectations. And we appreciate you for that. I take home one thing, as Iboan. Climate action is business action. Guest speaker, apart from being a green university, we are also an entrepreneurial university. So we will be able to combine the two. Allow me now to take a few questions.
Thank you. The chief guest, Dr. Richard Munang, the council, and all leaders, fellow comrades, good afternoon. It is my first time catching the university microphone. With that one, I want to ask my fellow comrades to appreciate me for that one. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Langat, second year doing education science. I have two questions. Dr. Richard Munang. Planting trees is one of the ways of solving climate change. Here in Kenya, with the Jubilee government, they are creating maybe constructing road, doing development, constructing houses, creation of fields. That one is clearing of bushes in itself. Sasa, you see, constructing a road, you need to clear bush. Constructing a house, you need to clear bush. Constructing a field, you need to clear bush. With the rising population again in our country, that seems the more we are going forward, the more the climate change is increasing by global warming because we are reducing trees. I don't want to pretend that I don't know the importance of planting trees because here is Green University, but that one is a challenge in itself. Number two, my question is, last 2018 November, we saw the president in Nairobi launching the blue economy. The blue economy, it is for the benefit of maybe taking the stewardship of the blue oceans, rivers, and lakes. With that one, it has created job opportunities to youth, it has provided food, and it has increases the GDP of our country. Now, destroying trees and maybe the climate change. What advice can you give the president? Because this climate change is very dangerous, and I think it can cause trouble, and it might not cause realization of the climate change. Thank you very much. I don't have any other question.
Thank you. Yes. I will not ask the guest to give the president advice, but he will advise us. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, I'm Riz Pomolo, a fourth year pursuing tourism management. Thank you very much. The topic you are talking about today is much concerning tourism. And you realize that, you said that tourism will not even be able to offer jobs to the youth. And you find that climate change, recently you find that in Kenya, wildlife is really depreciating. Like the number of wildlife in Kenya is decreasing. And one of the things is that is causing this is climate change. So because you are in that area, I just want to ask, is there research that has been done concerning how climate change affects wildlife, especially in Kenya? Because in future you'll find that there will be no animals in Kenya. And mostly in tourism, we only, like the main thing is safaris, and that is part of wildlife. So I was just asking, is there any research that has been done concerning how climate change affects wildlife? Thanks.
Yes, Chair of the Student Council.
Okay, good afternoon once more. I only have one question with the two romans. Roman 1, With the data which was based on, that is 2019, or it was 5th February 2019, whereby Kenya was rated to be number 151 out of 181 in vulnerability to the climate change. And one of the issues or the causes of the climate change in Kenya is the issue with the meat and dairy. And realize that they contribute 15% of the global greenhouse emissions according to the research which was done by FAO, whereby cows contribute 65%, pork 9%, buffalo milk 8%, poultry and eggs contribute 8%. And here we find that Kenya ratified the UN Framework Convention on the Climate Change. It ratified it in 1994, before I was born, and the Kyoto Protocol in 2005. Now to my question is that, is this Kyoto Protocol and the UNFFC implementing towards the meat and the dairy, or should we avoid the meat so that we at least we have got the climate change reduced in Kenya? Roman 2, can we adapt to the climate change instead of fighting it? Can we adapt to the climate change, or should we continue fighting it?
Okay. Thank you very much. Allow the guest to respond to those few, and then we can take some other three.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the students who have asked these questions. I've been a teacher before, but when I was in primary school, my primary school teacher told me and taught me that anyone who asks a question have an answer to it. The only thing he or she wants to know when he or she asks a question is to validate whether his or her thought process is right. So I assume that that's the case here. So what I'm going to do is to provide perspectives to your questions, because all what you ask is quite very valid. And I'll start off with the first question, which was more about what Kenya is doing, because it was more from the apartheid perspective. But let me just put it this way. Kenya is actually the first country in the African continent to have a Climate Change Act, 2016. Kenya is actually the first country in the entire African continent to have the best fit in clean energy tariff, that actually have incentives that even a lot of people don't know because they don't read it. I've read through the Clean Energy Act, and I've read through your Climate Change Act. It's actually one of the best acts that at the same time also have the Climate Change Action Plan. So in terms of Kenya putting in place the structures to address climate change, yes, you are ahead of most African continent. And I'll add this before I move to the second part. If you do not appreciate progress, you will never make progress. If you do not appreciate progress, you will never make progress. We, as African citizens, I am an African citizen, just like you are, we sometimes see the glass half empty rather than half full. If you do not see the glass half full, you will never ever be able to fill it. Kenya is actually ahead. Is that enough? No. Because it is not the role of government alone to implement climate action. It is the role of state and non-state actors. And those non-state actors are you and me. The role of government is to create an enabling environment for non-state actors like you and me, and the biggest constituency of non-state actors are the youth. The era of government legislating, implementing, and reporting is gone. It is you and me that must leverage on these enabling policies, the Climate Change Act of 2016, And Kenya actually have an ambitious nationally determined contribution. These are just plans on how it can drive its climate action forward. And clean energy and climate-smart agriculture is part of it. And if you tap into this and start adding value to what you produce, you are actually implementing that climate-smart agriculture. That is what government needs to do, and then provide the incentives for you to be able to do that. Not only you sitting, serikali's idea, no, hakuna mpesa, hakuna kazi. That time has passed. So my point is, the fact that you're talking about destruction of ecosystem, there should be no destruction of ecosystem. But my point I'm trying to make is that if you look at the Turkana wind farm, that's the biggest in the entire African continent. You look at Kenya's pathway towards clean energy. Kenya is actually doing much more than many countries in the entire world. Is that enough? Of course. There is never enough. But you must appreciate progress before you can make meaningful progress. Your second is blue economy. Excellent points. Yes, but this is what you say, what advice can I give? Well, the reality is this, right? The environmental action is an economic opportunity. Whether it is green economy or blue economy, taking environmental action, land, sea, anywhere, is an economic opportunity. And therefore it means you can, if you can then be able to ensure that you can prevent the destruction of aquatic life and utilize sustainable approaches or carry out a full assessment to understand, for example, if you take the breeding ground of fishes, to ensure that ships or other vessels cannot go through that area that can destroy. I'm just giving an example where you have the breeding areas for fishes and other important aquatic life, then it can inform you of actions to be taken. And in a nutshell, even those who are not part of the blue economy can actually take actions that can contribute to the blue economy. Because if you take the fishery industries, nearly everyone of us eat fish. And if you eat fish, then definitely, if the fish diminishes, then definitely it's going to plunge into the food insecurity cycle. So the blue economy or green economy, because what I always like to do is not to look at things in a sectorial way. I like to use a holistic approach. What we do on land and what we do on sea is important. And a holistic way of doing that is to look at it from the perspective of how to advance economic development and take the actions that are through climate change lens and more so environmentally viable and sustainable. And Kenya is actually a champion of the blue economy. That's why we hosted the biggest conference here. That's why the agenda, even in African ministerial conferences that we attend, Kenya leads this agenda. Please appreciate progress. Appreciate the fact that you are a champion. The third question, for the record, I didn't say that tourism will not be able to offer jobs. That's not what I said. I said the 900,000 youth who graduate to the labor market, that they need to create 900,000 jobs in the next 5 years for the youth who graduate into the labor market. And I said tourism alone will not be able to create those jobs. And therefore, it's good beyond tourism. We need them to look at other sectors that have a comparative advantage. And I said the agro value chain. Everybody eats food. And more so, we need nutritious food. How was it produced? Was it produced destroying the ecosystems? Was chemicalized fertilizers applied to disrupt ecosystem? How was it processed? Was it processed using a solar dryer that emits into the atmosphere and causes climate change? No, was it produced using solar dryer that doesn't emit into the atmosphere, or was produced using diesel approaches that contribute to greenhouse gas emission? So how you produce, how you process, and how you transport to market, that value chain is worth $1 trillion US. And if you tap into it, you will create more than 900,000 jobs even in a year, in addition to other sectors like tourism. And that must be done in a green way. Instead of using diesel power irrigation, we should use solar power irrigation. It is more efficient, it saves more water, and it is even cheap and cost effective. That's a climate action, but it is more environmentally friendly, and that's also a business you can venture to be developing and assembling solar power irrigation tools or developing solar dryers. And the fourth one was more interesting, coming from a student leader. I was a student leader before, and I understand your question was very, very important. And just to start from where you ended, the Kyoto Protocol. We have moved from the Kyoto Protocol to the Paris Climate Change Agreement. And the Paris Climate Change Agreement, Kenya ratified. Kenya was among the first 10 countries to ratify the Paris Climate Change Agreement in 2016. The Constitution of Kenya, under the Bill of Rights, Article 43, Paragraph 1C, talks about the right to food. And still within the same constitution, the right to food is cascaded down to your climate smart agricultural strategy. And the actions for that climate smart agricultural strategy cannot be done only by government alone. The processing and adding value to what we produce is an opportunity for you and me, for all the youth to engage in it using solar dryer and information communication technology. My point is, the Paris Climate Change Agreement, Kenya have ratified. Implementation cannot only be done by government alone. It must be done by you and me. And that is why I said that it is important that we start to see climate action as an investment opportunity, as a business opportunity, because you must become job creators and not job hunters. Can we adapt climate change or instead of fighting it? We should not be firefighters in the first place. The climate is changing and is presenting us with opportunities. And the only way to adapt to it is not to do what is not sustainable. And to do what is sustainable is to build people's resilience, and the best way to build people's resilience is to take actions that can drive economic opportunities, put more money in more pockets, so that the people can become resilient and at the same time address the challenges. Because as I said, adaptation is a process with no definitive endpoint. But adaptation cannot be a social endeavor. It must be seen through the economic lens. And that economic, when you devise a solar dryer, which many youth are already doing today, which we are backstopping them through this initiative called innovative volunteerism, and which you will see in my book, which I'm going to email to the DVC to circulate to all of you. If you can be able to devise a solar dryer and a Mamamboga can get it, a solar dryer is a mitigation action, but it can dry vegetables. That's an adaptation, because those vegetables will not get spoiled. Whether the Mamamboga sells it or not, they can actually have a lifespan of over 6-7 months. That adaptation is not abstraction. It is what is happening. But how do we leverage on that and take it forward as a business opportunity? That's why I came here today. Thank you.
I will take a question from Mudhuri. I will take from Deputy Registrar. Now, I will take a question from Merab.
Thank you so much. To our guest, I just want to bring this to just attention that he said clearly that the challenges that Africa is facing is still also affected globally. Also, it is felt in other continents. That's true. Now, I don't wish to be, maybe to say that we can be fortunate not to realize that the challenges that have been faced in Mozambique and Zimbabwe, as he was able to say clearly, that they have brought so much challenges in the whole continent that is Africa. Now, following to that,
the natural calamity that was able to hit Zimbabwe and Mozambique within the last year. Also here in Kenya, we are struggling. For the time being, we are in a country that we are struggling in control of locusts. They have invaded in a country like the one that we have right now. It is bringing a big problem even to be able to contain it. Now, we as young academicians who are sitting there and most of us who are spearheading various areas such as research and the other areas, how can we be able to be prepared well to handle these natural calamities that are coming up? Is it because of human ignorance or something that we are not able to control such calamities that are coming within our country and as well within the Africa that we are living in today? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Deputy Registrar Dr. Harari.
Thank you. I wish to ask this question with the eyes of a young person. My gift is agriculture. The reality is I come from a poor background. How can I align my giftedness with my reality to be able to drive transformative climate change? I'm gifted in agriculture, but the reality is I come from a very poor background. To be precise, we do not have land. Where I come from, it is dry, and when it rains, there are floods. That is the reality. But on the other hand, I'm gifted. I can do agriculture and excel. Now, my question is, as a young person, how can I align my skill and the reality and drive transformative climate change?
Merab, you can ask your question.
Thank you. I'm Merab Eliezer Nasimiyu, taking Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Management, Wildlife Option. I have a question. On the UNEP profile, for those who are going to register for intern, our university is not recognized. On the section of the university in Kenya, you find that Karatina University is not among the universities listed there. So to the school and also to you, our chief guest, how can we be able to get that? Thank you.
The last question. The last question here.
Okay, I'm Beth Sharon. I graduated from Chuka University in Environmental Science. My question is, I have passion in the line of climate change and climate actions. So what would you advise for someone who wants to do masters and PhD in the line of climate change and action? Thank you.
Yeah, with those questions, now we want to hand over to the chief guest to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks again for those questions. You know, in Africa, we love to talk a lot and complain a lot. It is sunny, we complain. We don't tap. It is raining, we don't harvest the water to use it when there are droughts. This is an African issue I'm talking here. So complaining is not a strategy. Complaining is not a strategy. Neither is blaming others a strategy. The only thing that is the best strategy is action. And that action, you cannot wait for others to do it for you. You must do it for yourself. The other one on internship, I'm not aware, but I, to the best of my knowledge, haven't been in the UN system for 11 years. Intake of students for internship, I don't think they're based on whether the university is on a website or not. I've worked with interns before and I've never looked at whether university is on, because there is a procedure where they apply and then they select it. So it's a new thing I'm hearing today and I will try to find out. So I can't comment on it because to me it's new. And I still think the policy is interns apply and then if the program officers, they need them, then they reach out to them, and then there is a procedure that they follow, interview and get so. And that applies to everyone regardless of school, university, college. That's the procedure that I know. So this one you're bringing is new, and I'm not able to provide information. But before I end, there was an aspect of wildlife which I intentionally left that out, and I wanted to answer that at the end, on how climate change is affecting wildlife. Let me bring the aspect of the drought in Australia and the fires in Australia. I believe most of you are social media champions. You use it sometimes to abuse others, others use it to bring solutions. The reason I'm mentioning this is that if you do not know what you have, even when you are given, you will never know that you have anything. And I want to discuss on social media just for about a minute, and I'll answer the question on the wildlife aspects from a climate dimension. If the best tool you have in your hand right now is your cell phone. And social media in the continent, most of us, not all, and I mean I cannot put everybody on the same, but what I see, I am a Twitter, I tweet a lot. If you follow me at Richard Munang, you will see what I tweet. This is what I'm trying to pass. When we use negativity and gossip as a strength, it messes our future without us knowing. And I'm talking to you young people, because when you submit that application, it is not only what you've submitted as having a BSc or a master or PhD or having experience. What the employers go out to look is actually your attitude on social media. And how active and which areas of activeness you are in. Is it abusing people? Is it gossip? Is it? So it's just a brotherly advice to my sisters and brothers. Please be careful what you say and do on social media. Your future can actually be curtailed in terms of opportunities because of that. But use social media to communicate solutions. Yes, communicate how you are coming up with this idea and you need someone to help you. Someone somewhere will reach out to you. That's how you will exchange knowledge, and you can start to get even information from someone who is not even here. I have used social media to engage more than 1 million youth across the continent, and I mentor them. Do same. To the question on the wildlife that is decreasing, if you take the Australian fires, the fire did not just start burning. The droughts are now being exacerbated by the changing climate or the floods. And because of the drought, the vegetation gets dried up, and any arsonist or anyone who strikes a fire elsewhere will mess up the entire vegetation that is dried. And if you look at the kangaroos, do you know how many of them have actually been lost? The point I'm making is that the changing climate have huge impacts on wildlife. And therefore, whether you are talking about wildlife as an economic opportunity or degrading forage that also impact, whether it is animal feed and etc., we are going to have economic impacts and actually lose opportunities. Therefore, climate change, nobody is spared and no sector is spared. But we must then be able to do is to also ensure that we leverage on sectors that can easily lift people from the bottom of the pyramid and drive transformational change. I will stop here.
Thank you very much. Can we give the guest an applause? Let's give him a better one. Yeah, thank you very much.
From our very beautiful environment, the green environment we are in, we pluck flowers, we hold them very well, and we give them to our very good guest speaker who was really educated this afternoon. Let's pick the flowers from outside, from everywhere. Let's put them together and we give to the chief guest. Thank you so much. And let's appreciate every one of us. Yeah.
University.
Climate action.
Climate action.
Green University.
Opportunities for all.
Opportunities for all.